all the JavaScript buffs in the town, I have got an amazing challenge for you people. I was going through LeetCode and there I found a 30 days JavaScript challenge. So I thought, oh, why not we together, you and me, try to take this challenge and see that how much time it takes us to solve all these problems. Now this challenge is for anyone who knows basics of JavaScript, anyone who has learned JavaScript and would like to solve few practice problems in JavaScript, or anyone who wants to solve the problem and solving problem, they want to learn the intricacies of the JavaScript world. So no matter if you are anyways related to the JavaScript, I believe this challenge is going to help you a lot. So let's get started with this challenge with me in this video. So let's get started with the challenge. As you can see on the screen right now, this is a LeetCode challenge, right? So this is a LeetCode challenge. You can go on the LeetCode landing page. This is a URL which you can go and make use of to get started with this challenge. If you're starting with the challenge, please do tag me over the LinkedIn or put that stories on the Instagram. Let me know that you are doing this challenge with me. I will strongly suggest, if you have anything to do with the full stack development, if you have studied or are doing or have any relationship with the JavaScript, you should definitely do this challenge. Now let's get started. So as you can see here, it's a 30 days of JavaScript challenge and there are questions which is there on multiple concepts. What I'm going to do is that let's try to see that if I want to do it one after the other, how much time does it take for me to go and solve the problem. I've already started the timer. Let's get started. So the very first question, let's go and click on this. Very nice. I go and select as toolbar, click on this. Fair enough. Okay. As you can see on the screen, it says that create hello world function. Okay. It says that write a function create hello world. It should return a new function that always returns hello world. It is trying to say that you have a function. Inside that function, you have to create a function which has to be returned, and that function when executed should always print me hello world. That's the question it says, right? So fair enough. In order to understand this better, it is trying to give the two example scenarios. In the case when the first input argument is an empty array, the output should be hello world, and how it will be executed, I'll go and call this function called as create hello world, which you see here is already there. This is a create hello world function. And when I go and call this, this should return me a function. This is a function, and when I'm trying to execute this function, it is always printing the hello world. In the second example also, no matter what the argument is, when I go and call this function called create hello world, it returns me a function, and when I go and call this function with these multiple arguments, it's returning hello world. So with that, I have to go and implement this inner function. So the code is already been provided here. As you see here, some dummy code is already provided here. You can see that this is my function called as create hello world, and inside that there's an inner function. This is my inner function which takes the variable number of argument. If you see here, triple.args means that it can take the variable number of varargs. It can take the variable number of arguments 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see here also. So the function which is returned is here, it's taking no arguments, 0 arguments, and you see here it is taking the 3 arguments. How is that possible? It is possible because of the code that you see here. It is taking the variable number of arguments. But the question says that no matter what the input is, but every time this inner function when it is called, it should always print hello world. How should we do it? Just pause this video and think in your mind that how we can do it. It's pretty simple, very straight. I don't know why they have put up this question. This every time it has to do only one thing, is that it has to go and return hello world. So what I'm going to do here is I can just go and inside this, I can go and say that return hello world. Fair enough. And as soon as I do it, let's try to go and run it and see if it works. I go and click on the test and I see that it's working fine. Case 1, case 2, both are accepted perfectly fine. Now what I'll do is that I'll go and submit this code. So I'm done with the first question. My question has been accepted. Now let's try to go and move on. If I also go and click on the solution, there's a solution also which has been provided just to see, how it works. Fair enough. So now I go back and I go back to the next question. So the next question is counter. Let's try to see that what this question is trying to say. Given an integer n, return a counter function. N is the input. Fair enough. and I have to go and return a counter function. This counter function initially returns n and then returns 1 more than the previous value every subsequent time. Right? Let's try to understand with the help of an example. So it is saying this is the counter function. This is the create counter function that I have created. And then every time I go and call this function, this should go and return this. This is the inner function that has to be returned. And every time I go and call this inner function, this n value should be incremented. So as for example, it says that n value is equals to 10. And then I go and call this function 3 times actually. Right? Then it is first printing 10, then it is printing 11, then it is printing 12. Similarly, n is equals to minus 2. And it is being called how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So first minus 2 is printed, then minus 1, then 0, then 1, and then 2. Right? This is how it is working fine. Again, just pause this video and try to solve this question yourself. If you are able to do it, just do let me know either on Instagram or LinkedIn, anything works, but do let me know that you guys are doing this challenge with me. Right? Now again, this is a very simple question. I know that every time this function will be called, I have to write some logic inside this. Inside this, I have to write a logic so that n value is increased. Now, since it is a function inside a function and n is being passed here, it's a classic example of a closure. If you guys know closure, great. If not, it's time that you go back and revise those concepts of the closure. So what I can do here is that using this n, I'll just do some logic. So I would like to go and increase the value of n. So what I do here is that let me go and clean this and click here, return n plus plus. What I'm trying to say, first return n, the next n, then increment it, then again return n, then increment it. This is how we should go and run it. Just a single line of the code, and I feel that this should work all fine. Let's try to run this and see if my solution is working correctly. So it is accepted. Case 1, case 2, both of them are working. Let's go and submit this. So now I'm on the third question, and this seems to be a little long. Let's try to see that. It's saying that to be or not to be. Fair. It says that write a function expect. So I have this function called as an expect, as you can see here, that help developer test their code. Fine. It should take in any value val and return an object with the following two properties. So it is taking any value as val. So this is my input which I am taking. And expectation is that this function should return an object. This should return an object. Fair enough. This is the expectation. And what kind of object? This object should have two functions in it. This object should return two functions. What are those two functions? One of the function is to be, which should take an argument the val, and another one is that not to be val. Right? It should return the two functions. One is this to be, and another one is not to be val. To be val accepts another value and returns the two values each other. Okay, so this function, this object will have a function which have a method called as to be val, and if the value that I go and pass matches with the value, then I go and return that as true. Otherwise, I should throw an error not equals. Okay. Similarly, there is another not to be. If they don't match, then you should go and return true. Otherwise, you go and say throw an error called as the equal. Let's try to understand with the help of an example. So when I go and say that expect 5 to be 5, since 5 is matching with the 5, it is returning true. That's great. On the other hand, example 2, if 5 I'm trying to match with null, it is not matching, so it is giving an output not equals, not equal. Okay, and then when the same thing I am trying to do with the not equal, same thing I'm trying to do with the not equal, it is again printing the same thing, which is value equals to true. Fair enough. So what I need to do, I need to go and to be function and not to be function has to be implemented inside this. Let's quickly go and write the code and see if that works. So now I will come here and will try to write the code. So what I do is I go and say that return, and what I've written an object, right? Inside that I have a function called as to be, equals to value. I'm using an arrow function just so that I can do things succinctly. If you're not very comfortable with the arrow function, you can write the normal function in JavaScript also. Now I go and say that if value equals to val, if that is the case, let's put that inside the bracket. Then I go and return true, else throw, and I go and say that throw not equal. And similarly, if it is not to be, if I go and put the comma and go and say that not to be, and again I go and take the value, and I go and say that if value not equals to null, val return true, else true, and I go and say that equal. So this is how it works. Let's try to go and run this. If that works, fine. And then I have an error. Let's try to see that where that error is. Okay, so I missed the thing. So there has to be one more arrow, and here should be the comma. Let's try to run this now and see if it works. It says accepted. Now let's try to go and submit this. Now let's talk about the next question. Question number 4. Let's try to see that what it is. This is my question number 4. It says counter 2. Write a function create counter. Okay, let me go and see in the code section if that function, what is the definition of the thing is. There's a create counter function which you can see here. Fair enough. It should accept an initial integer in it. So this is the input, so which you see here. It should return an object with 3 functions. So this function basically should go and return an object. And this object should have 3 functions. One is called as an increment, another is decrement, and third one is a reset. What does the increment should do? Increment should increase the current value by 1 and then return it. So whatever is the value that you go and pass, that value has to be increased by 1 and then return it. Decrement should reduce the current value by 1 and then return it. Very nice. And the reset should set the current value to init and then return it again. So inside the function we have to go and create an object, and inside the object should have the functions, right? So let's try to see that how do we solve it. So let me go and clean this up and call here. So I have to go and return an object, right? So I'll go and first of all go and write return object. Fair enough. And inside the return object I have to go and define this function called as increment. So I should have a function called as increment, and the increment should take a no argument function like this, right? This should be one function. What is another function? The another function that I should have is decrement, and then again it should go and take another function like this. Fair enough. And then it should have another function called as a reset, and it should again do something like this. So the create counter function, this should go and return an object. Object should return the 3 functions increment, decrement, and the reset. Increment should increase the current value by 1 and then return. What does that mean? This is the initial value, right? So let me go and store this initial value into some current value. So I'm going to say that let num equals to please edit this out. Let num equals to init, and then what I go and do this for the increment, I should go and say it goes to the return, and I want to the plus plus num. Decrement when I have to go and do this current value, I should go and decrement it. So I should go and say the return minus minus num, and minus reset. I'll go and set that num equals to the value which is in pass, which is init. Fair enough. This is how it should look like. And then I should go and return num. Fair enough. So this is my entire code looks like. Right, so I've created this function. Inside this function, I had to return an object. So I created an object. Inside the object, I have to return the function increment, decrement, and the reset, and this is working all fine. Let's try to see if it works. We'll go and run on the run. And I see the test has got passed. Let's go and submit this. And my answer has been accepted. Let's try to move on to the next question. So the next question is the fifth one, which says that apply transform over each element in the array, right? So we would have been given an array, and for each element I have to do some kind of transformation, right? So this is the function called as a map, which I have to go and implement it ourselves. And this map function, I have this array, and this is a function which has to be applied over each element. Fair enough, we understood this. Now let's try to move on and read the problem statement. Problem statement says that given an integer array, okay, so this is an integer array, and a mapping function fn returns a new array with a transformation applied to the each element. I think this is one of the very common things when you start developing the application. Many of the times you'll get the list of numbers, objects, and then you like to do the transformation on each of them. The returned array should be created such that returned array ith position should be equals to the function the ith index and the value at the ith index. Okay, so basically it is trying to say that this mapping function fn which has been provided will take two arguments. First argument will be the value itself, will be the value, and the second one will be the index where that value exists. So these are the two values it passes, and that should be made the return value I. Please solve it without using the built-in array.map function, saying that you cannot make use of array.map function. You have to write your own code to solve this. For example, let's say that if it is an array and there is a function plus 1 has been passed to it. So typically it will go and add 1, no, it will go and add n plus 1. So it will become 1 plus 1, 2, this becomes 3, this becomes 4. Fair enough. Let's try to see the another example. So if I go and scroll up and I say that array 1, 2, 3, function plus ni, if this is the one n plus I is added, then it becomes 1 plus 0 equals to 1, 2 plus 1 is equals to 3, 3 plus 2 equals to 5. So this is working all fine. What it's trying to do? I'm trying to add the number with its index, right? So with 1 I'm adding 0, with 2 I'll add 1, and with 3 I'll add 2. So this becomes 1 plus 0 is 1, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 3 plus 2 is equals to 5. Fair enough. So let's try to go and write the code for this. Pretty simple seems. So what I have to do is that in this case I'll have to iterate through array and apply fn functions, right, and create new arrays. This is what I'll have to go and do. So let's try to see that what let's write the code directly for this. So first of all, what I do is here, let me first of all go and create a new transformed array. So I go and say let, and I'll go and say that arr, and I go and call it as this. Fair enough. And then for this given array, I go and say the array dot for each So for each is a method through which you can go and traverse through the entire array for each, right? And then I go and pass val, and I go and say that index, right? And then what I go and do is that I'll go and say that array dot push, and here I'll go and pass fn, and that I go and pass val comma index. And once all of this is done, then I'll go and return this array, return array, as simple as that. Let's try to go and run this and see if this works fine. So I see there's an error. Let's try to see what is that. Okay, array has already been declared, so my bad. Let me go and call it as array modified, right? And then I go and call it as array underscore mod, and let me go and call it as array underscore mod. Let's try to rerun this again. I'm purposefully not editing it out because that's a normal mistake that you normally do when you try to write code live. So I want to understand that has happened. And my bad, it has again failed. Let's try to see that why it happened now. So this array dot each, array dot for each, and that should be one more bracket here, and then it should be. So now if I go and run this again, it's working all fine. Let's try to submit this, and this got submitted. Perfect.